45. All right, here's the lineup, and now one of these has been decided. It said like an and or on the Sweet 16. The teams from the start Thursday: Clemson, who just knocked out Baylor against Arizona; San Diego State, UConn; Alabama, North Carolina; Illinois and Iowa State; North Carolina State and Marquette; also Gonzaga and Pittsburgh, Duke, and Houston. And what a game that was last night. We will start
Gonzaga and Purdue.
Gonzaga, Purdue, excuse me. And Duke and Houston, and what a slugfest that was. We'll have a quote from Kelvin Sampson here momentarily. So those are the Sweet 16 games. They will start early in the evening on Thursday.
Yeah, look, starting with Houston, it's completely not a surprise that Kelvin Sampson, among every coach, can figure out a way to win a game when you've got 4 starters fouled out, or in the kind of trouble that they were. They figured it out. They moved along down the line. A&M's a great story. Like, they were able to build, and we'll see what Buzz Williams can do and keep together with that team next year. But other than there were some big upsets, obviously, through the weekend, but you do see this year a lot different than last year in that those number 1 seeds, there's some separation between the UConns, the Purdues, the Houstons of the world.
North Carolina
of the world, that those teams are really, really good. I think that Iowa State showed that they can hang with anybody. I think Tennessee showed they can hang with anybody. But we'll see going down the line, because particularly UConn and Purdue look like they are out for blood.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good weekend of hoops. Not a ton in the way of upsets. I mean, there's a couple of teams that are still hanging around, obviously, like an NC State being an 11 seed. They're one of the exceptions to the rule. You had who else? I mean, everybody's a 1, a 4. Clemson, obviously, over Baylor. Besides that, who are you looking at? That's about it. I mean, that's it.
It was a very innocuous weekend for Shockers after they got to Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, the first round you had some, but the second round heading into the Sweet 16, I mean, everybody's pretty much chalk with the exception of
North Carolina State.
And North Carolina State.
Red hot.
And they're red hot, and the ACC's red hot. They have the bragging rights. Jeff Capel's smiling right now after his comments about the Big 12. You see the ACC has a quarter of the Sweet 16, the Big 12 just with 2. So, and then it had, teams, beating Big 12 schools. So you now have that opportunity as well with a Houston and Duke matchup. So you could see even more of that. But a really great weekend. Clemson still around, kind of a somewhat of a surprise with that upset over Baylor, beating Baylor. So Jeff Capel, I feel like, could run that tape back and really be like, see, I told you guys. Now, all that really matters, because I don't think we ever sit around and really talk Sweet 16s. And, hey, you remember the 94 Sweet 16? Yeah. It's who wins at the end. So that'll be ultimately who has bragging rights. But, yeah, great first couple of rounds for the ACC. Everybody else kind of spread out. Pac-12 hanging on with just one team now at this point in Arizona. But Colorado made some interesting things happen. Oregon had a chance. It was an entertaining weekend. Not craziness. I think the first – first round of games was where we saw more of the madness of March and not so much on Saturday and Sunday, but really enjoyed it. And Houston, man, what an effort from Texas A&M, but all credit to Houston for being able to just grit that out and get it done there at the end. And to have your heart ripped out thinking you're going to win it in regulation, and then for A&M to hit a big shot and send it to overtime, you were thinking, oh my gosh, are they going to get knocked out before they even reach the Sweet 16? And able to ultimately get it done in extras. But what an effort by Buzz Williams and the Aggies. And the Big 12 needed that. Houston needed that, because anything less would have been a massive disappointment. And, I'm just excited to see how this continues to play out.
So the AC, by the way, other than NC State, a double-digit seed, they're the only one left. The next highest seed as far as number is Clemson at 6, San Diego State at 5. Everyone else is where they are. In fact, I don't have this note, but this is only the 5th time since they expanded the tournament to 64 back in 1985. Listen to this. 5th time ever that the top 2 seeds are all still alive entering the Sweet 16. So even though they're the top 2 seeds, that hasn't always worked that way, but it has this year. ACC, as Craig brought up, a perfect 8-0 in the first and second round games. There's Carolina, Duke, Clemson, and NC State, all in the Sweet 16. Here's another note about the ACC. from Bob Holliday. When North Carolina beat Michigan State, it extended the NCAA's most amazing streak aside from UCLA's 7 consecutive titles. The ACC has now had 45 consecutive Sweet 16s with somebody in it. Every year. Since 1979, no other conference comes close to that. Now, here's another incredible streak. How about Gonzaga? They have been so close. Obviously, the latest was when they were beaten by Baylor in Indianapolis. 9th consecutive Sweet 16. How amazing. Only one other program in the tournament has had multi-years going. Houston with 4, Gonzaga at 9, North Carolina. Those are the great years with Jordan and Dean Smith and company, and UCLA with John Wooden at the very top. 14. So Gonzaga putting up some numbers too. But boy, don't you know they would trade half of them, all of them, for a national title.
Now, on the ACC, I would say that this was not a banner regular season for them at all. Like there was, North Carolina was good all year. Everybody knew that. Duke is Duke, but, the thing that the ACC's had in the past is, Miami was shooting up there. There have been teams that, kind of out of nowhere had good seasons, or they felt like a really deep league. Then the regular season this year didn't feel like that, but they've made every entry that they've had in the tournament that did get in count
absolutely,
and count huge. So I guess their coaches were right. That this was a league that could hang a little bit more. There was a significant drop off from the top of their league to the middle, and I think that's where people were like, well, if you're going to beat up on these teams that are not really all that good, are you really that good? And the Big 12, and the SEC, you talk about how there's not as much of a drop-off all the way down. Well, look at where they're sitting this weekend. I also think that while sometimes that can prove you might be better than you are, I think this is just about individual teams and how they're hot and how they match up, and it doesn't necessarily speak to the conference all that much.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I feel like now more than ever because of all the stuff with Sankey and the reports about what he's trying to do with the tournament and, people taking that every type of a way. And we know that certainly the Big Ten, they're staying the quietest, but they're as active as anybody. And just all the conference realignment and the worry about the future and all these different types of things. I do think that everybody's adapted this SEC conference pride thing, and I've tried to warn against this how many times now? You'll keep hearing me say it. I don't want to have to root for every Big 12 school because for the sake of doing it and all this and that. So I think there's a level of kind of conference pride that's taken over across college sports because of just the environment that's been created right now. So everybody's got their banners waving and are defensive about their leagues and all of that. But the proof's in the pudding, and the ACC went out and they talked the talk via Jeff Capel. Now granted, the conversation he was having, it was about the depth of the league and why a team like his should be getting in. Mm-hmm. And maybe it is just that they've got the best group of top teams. That'll shake out in the end if they've got the team that's raising the trophy. But yeah, they've been off to a great start. The Big 12, for all the talk about them as being the best league top to bottom. If Iowa State or Houston go and win the title, then that'll still ring as true as it did previously. But if they don't, they fall in the Elite Eight, then yeah, there's going to be plenty of conversation about how true that was. But I'm with Paul. I think that's something that I think has kind of overtaken some of the conversation, not all of it, but some of it, when in reality it is more or less just about matchups. It's about who did you play on the road to get there more often than it is about the schedule that you played during the regular season or things like that. And it's, for example, Gonzaga beat Kansas, but is that Kansas that's Kansas that we've been watching at full strength here lately? No, and not to make excuses anyway, but that was a favorable matchup for them, an otherwise team that was ranked higher than them that they happened to catch with two guys who aren't playing. That would have been major factors. So matchups matter, and it's just the luck of the draw. And hey, if you get a good draw, then you better take advantage of it. And so some teams are. I think Gonzaga right now, I don't know what they'll do in the next round, but I know they blew Kansas's doors off. That was pretty quick. You could see it. Bill Self even saying after the game, but when did you start thinking about next season? Honestly, about a month ago, based on trying to piece together the roster, how they put it together. And that's something Scott Drew said after their loss as well, or will have to address, because this is 3 consecutive years they've not been able to get after through the first round. Now, here's another. Duke's beating a 13 and a 12 to get to the Sweet 16. No, yeah, sometimes it's the way things fall. And they're a good team regardless, but that's definitely beneficial. Kelvin Sampson after the dramatic overtime win against A&M. And you're right, Buzz Williams' team.
Somebody sent out a note to me on Twitter last night when I was mentioning it, and I just thought it was a great game. And we're like, too many 46 free throws. I was like, that game reminded me of Gangs of New York. They're both violent. They're both incredibly athletic, great leaping ability. They crashed the boards. That's why you had as many players foul out. I thought in the end it was an incredibly entertaining game. All right, Kelvin Sampson on the overtime win over A&M. They went to the free throw line how many times? 45. I had 4 guys fell out. We go into overtime. Think about how many people watched this thing nationally and said, this game is over. And he went on to say, one of the best parts about us, no one's really watched our practices. They've never been to our conditioning. They don't know that the shuttles and sprints, that's the only thing I said to his team he was mentioning, fellas, were built for this. And after the disappointment of having to go into overtime with the long 3, they took over overtime pretty quickly.
And Buzz Williams, I mean, what a great call he had to set that up on the inbound was so awesome. And if you watched the fans and the bench, even Kelvin Sampson did not look like a guy who felt they had it all in control. Now, that's why look can be deceiving. The fans, I know what the fans are all thinking. They're like, oh, crap.
Yep.
This is where it ends right here because you don't come back from something like that. And they're looking at, okay, who can come out and play in overtime? Oh, no one?
Yeah.
Some
guy that had to hit a critical free throw, by the way.
But that's what has been instilled in Houston all year long, and they just don't play bad games. They don't. They're not going to, like you go.
Big 12 championship game was a bad game.
That's the only one. They have one, and they're all banged up, so that you don't really have bad games. And when you have a team that is so top to bottom committed to the way that they prepare and the way that they show up and the way that every possession, you watch Houston, every possession matters to them. They're not going to have times during the game where you're like, oh, we're a little tired. We're good enough to overcome this. No, they play every possession like whether they're up 20 or down 20. It's the same. They play it the same way, and that's what lets you win when you have this really weird out there situation that never happens in overtime.
Yeah, I mean, Jamal Shedd's a star. I think that was just proven even more so last night. Kelvin Sampson's a Hall of Fame coach. I think that's just proven more last night. Houston's a hell of a basketball team and fun to watch. I mean, that was a great game. Give Texas A&M a lot of credit. I mean, we'd be talking about the SEC and Greg Sankey in a much different way if they'd gotten A&M into the Sweet 16. You got a couple teams. You'd have, 3 teams that would have been in from the SEC with Tennessee and
Alabama.
Alabama. So they nearly got a bit more bragging rights there. But, no, I mean, just incredible effort from Houston with the adversity they were dealing with in terms of availability, and just so impressed with them. Again, anything short of a Sweet 16 would have been a massive disappointment for that roster. And I still think, anything less than a Final Four probably feels that way somewhat just because you've been off and on number 1. You've lost so few games. But yeah, that was amazing, and happy for LJ Cryer, the former Baylor star who moved over to Houston.
Yeah, he was clutch.
Yeah, and they could have definitely used him. Yep. It's fair to say.
Well, he didn't know. They could have used him because he's another scorer. But the problem is they need some dogs on defense.
Yeah, but they could also use some buckets the other day, certainly when shots weren't falling. But yeah, I mean, good for him. Again, just a credible game, credible finish, and credible effort from the other side. One of those sucks somebody had to lose that one, but in this case it was A&M. So, yeah, let's see what the Cougs can do moving forward.
All right, the chat room's moving along. Obviously, you can text us if you want to by 4-339-1122 for Jared Stansberry covering Iowa State. Iowa State players who have appeared in multiple Sweet 16 games. Monty Morris in 14 and 16, Matt Thomas in 14 and 16, and now Robert Jones twice in 2022 and 2024. There are some programs that have been to, again, I'm going to show you a graphic in a minute, 35 to 45 or so of those. So good for Iowa State, and they've taken care of their business. Now, national titles. 19, I think it was Virginia. Nobody in 20. Baylor 21 and Kansas 22. In the last 5 NCAA tournaments, those 3 schools have each won a national title. Those 3 schools have not made it out of the first weekend in any of the 4 years they didn't win incredibly hard consistently to advance in this tournament, despite what we showed you with some of the schools that have made a habit of doing that.
It is very hard. And it becomes even harder when you become the hunted. You know, when you are the one that, instead of those times where it's like, you know, well, I mean, Kansas has always been the hunted, but particularly after you win a national title, your bullseye even gets bigger.
Yep.
You know, everybody wants a chunk of Kansas whenever they can get them because they're Kansas and, you know, it's the home of basketball. But for like a team like Baylor or Virginia, when you've been good, what's the pregame in the old days with Baylor and Virginia? Like, can they do it? Can they break through? Can they beat this team? You know, can Baylor beat Duke?
Break the
Can
jinx
they
of
do
Ralph
it?
Sampson? Yeah.
Now, if once you've won a national title, the thing is, look at this little upstart that's playing mighty Baylor or Virginia or whoever. You're no longer the warm, cuddly little story. You're now the enemy, right, to all these people. You're a big dog. So once you've got that trophy, it's a lot different. And they're coming for you in a way that they weren't before because now you've shown that you need to be taken seriously.
Yeah, I also saw a stat that UConn is the first defending champion since 2016 to reach the Sweet 16. So you've got Kansas, Baylor, Virginia that you mentioned there, but Villanova in 2019, UNC in 2018, Villanova again in 2017. So since 2016, only one defending champ has reached the Sweet 16, and that's UConn this year, which is kind of an amazing stat as well to add to that. And I think in the case of Kansas, I mean, health, guys. I mean, health played a major factor. That wasn't the same team. Now, they were up and down, topsy-turvy, not the same Kansas all year long that we're typically accustomed to watching. But to think that didn't play a role in their early exit, I think is foolish. Obviously, it played a role when you don't have some of your best players. In the case of Virginia, I mean, that brand of basketball is so it's so hit or miss that you run into the wrong matchup in the wrong night, and it's one of the ugliest things you could ever possibly watch, right? And in the case of Baylor, what is it? Because there's the big debate going on around. Are they getting too many one-and-dones? I'm seeing a lot of that.
Well,
I've seen a lot
that,
of, just wondering what the issue is for them that they haven't been able to reach the Sweet 16 since 2021. Is it just the matchups?
Have they gotten to the point where they're not getting some dogs when it comes to defense? Guys that are, again, you're not going to just go find Davion Mitchell. That was unbelievable. Right. They had depth at the guard position that was like unbelievable. But they also had Jonathan Chamachachua when he was young and healthy. They had Vital inside, and they had Flo Thamba. You're not going to get that with all how talented that Misi is, and Michael, and also with oh my God, Loner. There's nobody there protecting the rim defensively, and I think that really came back to hurt him this year too.
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard to do. It's